Good day, dear guest, and be swept away by the story of Atli Illumination, a tapestry of words delicately crafted by StoryWave AI. We're honored by your visit. Like, share, and subscribe to be part of our storytelling family. Chapter 1: Auroras and Old Friends. Beside him, Lana, with her striking emerald tresses and sapphire gaze, cradled a rare bloom that seemed to resonate with the energy of the land. Though petite, she held the wisdom of the flora in her gentle hands, her spirit akin to the hummingbirds that flitted with an almost imperceptible buzz. Matchra's strong frame loomed nearby, the glow of his palm cartilage faint beneath the night's luminescence. His black hair was a contrast against the backdrop of stars, and a protective instinct was etched into his very being, as steadfast as the dire wolves that prowled the distant forests. The air shifted with the arrival of Nyx, known as Shade to some for his chameleon-like abilities. His youthful features were ever-changing, mirroring the world around him with a sense of wonder that belied his years. Alluvia, with auburn locks that flowed like the rivers of their homeland, stepped lightly into the circle. Her presence was like a melody that soothed the savage wilderness, her deep green eyes holding the depth of the healing waters she revered. They stood at the precipice of the unknown, the weight of their shared destiny a silent bond between them. Esephris, ever the inquisitive soul, broke the stillness, his voice a melodic thread weaving through the crisp air. Desol's secrets are ours to uncover, he declared, his gaze lingering on the new faces among them. The group exchanged tales of their past endeavors, each story a piece of the mosaic that was their intertwined fates. Lana's contribution was succinct, her botanical knowledge evident in her descriptions of the lands they had traversed. Yet, as the conversation flowed, she found herself more observer than participant, her attention drawn to the subtle dynamics at play. Matchra, with his engineer's mind, spoke of mechanisms and structures of old, his voice a gravelly contrast to Esephris's harmonics. His anecdotes were practical, grounded in the reality of their surroundings. Nyx, the scout, recounted his findings with a sibilant enthusiasm, his collection of oddities an attestation to his exploratory nature. Alluvia's tales were infused with a warmth that belied her years, her healer's heart finding resonance in the plights and triumphs of the people they had encountered. As the night deepened, the tales grew grander, the auroras above a silent audience to their reunion. Lana, however, felt a twinge of something unspoken, as Esephris's attention occasionally drifted to Alluvia. She masked her thoughts well, her training allowing her to maintain a composed exterior. Their preparations for the journey ahead were meticulous, each member contributing their unique skills to the collective cause. Yet, in the shadows of the night, distant eyes observed the luminous gathering, drawn to the latent power that stirred beneath the calm. The crystal shard, a relic of a time long past, lay dormant in their midst, its secrets locked within its multifaceted depths. As Esephris and his companions delved into its mysteries, they remained unaware of the forces that began to converge upon Desol, the reawakening of the artifact sending ripples through the fabric of the world. In the intensity of the moment, the group solidified their resolve, their departure from the familiar into the heart of the unknown, marked by the silent promise of discovery and the unvoiced acknowledgement of the trials that lay ahead. Desol, with its auroras and echoes of old friends, watched over them as they stepped into the narrative woven by the hands of fate, a tale of bonds and rivalries, of landscapes both external and internal. Chapter 2: Skeets and Sunset. Esephris, with an air of confidence that his lean frame belied, guided his skeet with a practiced hand, his opal eyes reflecting the colors of the dying sun. "Behold, the vastness of Desol beckons," he exclaimed, leading the flight with his luminescent palm guiding his path. Lana, her petite form one with the skeet beneath her, maneuvered with a precision that spoke of her intimate connection with nature. Her emerald hair trailed behind her like a living banner. "The forests of our youth still hold many secrets," she said, her voice soothing despite the rush of wind. Matchra's brawny figure leaned into the thrill of the chase, his skeet responding to his every command. The light stubble on his face caught the last rays of sunlight as he declared, "In the thrill of the hunt, we find truth." Nyx, shade to those who knew his talents, rode with a lithe grace, his hair and eyes shifting with the hues of twilight. Curiosity is the compass that leads us, he whispered, almost to himself, as he wove through the tangle of branches. Alluvia, graceful as the swan that was her spirit animal, followed the group, her auburn hair a dramatic divergence against the deepening greens of the forest. The healer's path is one of balance and harmony, she called out, her melody lost in the turmoil of the chase. The air was thick with the tension of unspoken words as the group indulged in the joy of flight, the laughter a facade that barely concealed the undercurrents of rivalry. Lana and Alluvia, their skeets gliding wingtip to wingtip, shared a glance that spoke volumes more than words could convey. As they darted between treetops, the competitive edge sharpened. Matchra's voice carried above the din. Speed is the ally of the brave. His hazel eyes flashed with the thrill of the impromptu race. Esephris, observing the interactions with an analytical mind, pondered the dynamics at play. Even the mightiest rivers were once but trickling streams, he mused, his gaze lingering on the path ahead. Meanwhile, the crystal shard, nestled securely within Esephris's pack, pulsed with an inner light that grew more insistent with each passing moment. Unseen and unbeknownst to the friends, entities with a hunger for the artifact's power drew closer. The energy of the reawakening crystal, a marker in the encroaching darkness of Desol. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world into twilight, the skeets landed gracefully upon the ground. The friends dismounted, the connection between them as tangible as the earth beneath their feet. Yet, as they prepared to camp under the stars, the air remained charged with the unsaid, the shadows of their thoughts, as much a part of the landscape as the ancient trees that surrounded them. Chapter 3. The Treehouse Pact. "Behold our sanctuary of yesteryears," Esephris announced, his melodic voice betraying none of the turmoil that lay within his chest. The silvery glow of the evening light filtered through the opal translucence of his eyes, casting prismatic patterns upon the timbered walls. Lana, her emerald tresses a obvious variance against the rustic backdrop, moved with a grace that seemed almost out of place in the rough-hewn environment. "These walls have borne witness to the silent vows of our younger selves," she stated, a matter-of-fact tone underscoring her words. Matchra, whose formidable presence was as much a part of the treehouse as the timber it was built from, ran a hand along the wooden grain. "If these planks could speak, they would tell tales of ambitions forged in the fires of camaraderie," he remarked, the gravel in his voice echoing in the close quarters. Nyx, ever the chameleon, blended into the surroundings with an ease that spoke of his scout's training. His variable eyes scanned the room, taking in the relics of their shared history. A treasure trove of bygone days, he observed, his sibilant tone a fitting soundtrack to the flickering shadows. Alluvia, her presence as calming as the gentlest breeze, settled into a corner with the fluidity of water finding its level. "May our respite here be as healing as the balm of Gilead," she intoned, her melodious voice a soothing counterpoint to the encroaching dusk. As the pact of their youth was rekindled, they each spoke of their desires to carve out a moment free from the encumbrances of their quest. Esephris, with a contemplative tilt of his head, offered, "Let this be an interlude of solace, a reprieve from the inexorable march of destiny." Lana nodded, her agreement silent but resolute, while Matchra added, "Aye, let the world beyond wait. Here we are but wayfarers in the realm of repose." Yet, as the pact was forged anew, Nyx drew forth the mysterious shard, its surface a dance of light and shadow. "This cipher of the ancients beckons us toward a path untrodden," he said, his revelation a pebble that sent ripples across the still waters of their intent. The shard, reacting to their proximity, pulsed with an intensity that resonated through the treehouse. The air grew heavy with the scent of ozone, a tangible reminder of the power they sought to understand. As they deliberated over the implications of Nyx's unveiling, the world outside the treehouse continued its inexorable spin. Forces with eyes like coals and hearts of obsidian closed in on Desol, the thrum of the crystal's awakening calling to them across the vastness of the unknown. In the wooden sanctum of their past, the friends pledged to make their time together last, to etch this respite into the accounts of their lives. But the call of adventure was not one to be ignored, and the Treehouse Pact, though earnest in its conception, was but a fragile thing in the face of destiny's pull. As night descended upon the forest, the treehouse stood as a sentinel to the promises made and the journey ahead. The shadows lengthened, and the pact, once a beacon of youthful intent, now flickered uncertainly like a candle caught in the draught of an open window. Chapter 4: Light of the Unknown. Matchra, his voice a solid presence in the disorienting brilliance, broke the charged silence. By the ancients, what manner of sorcery is this? His eyes, usually so sure and steady, searched the room for an anchor in the tempest of light. Lana, her hand instinctively going to the small scar on her cheek, regarded the crystal with a botanist's curiosity. Is this a natural phenomenon, or have we stumbled upon something far beyond the realms of flora and lore? Alluvia, her auburn hair casting dancing shadows upon her delicate features, spoke with a healer's precision. This luminescence, it is akin to the auroras, yet so much more intense. Could it be a form of communication? In the corner, Nyx's color-shifting skin took on the hues of the light, rendering him part of the spectacle. Is it not said that light is both particle and wave? Perhaps Esephris has found the means to resonate with its dual nature. Esephris, center to the maelstrom of illumination, his visage as indecipherable as the opal eyes that reflected the light, remained still. In the legends of old, light was the harbinger of knowledge, the lodestar that led the wayward back to the path of enlightenment. Their musings were cut short as the glow intensified, a resplendent flare that sent shadows scurrying into the furthest corners. The group shielded their eyes, each grappling with the implications of the artifact's reaction. Matchra, his protective instincts flaring as brightly as his glowing palm, was the first to regain composure. We must consider the ramifications of this discovery. What if it is not just light, but a signal? Lana, her mind ever analytical, considered the botanical analogies. If we liken it to the bioluminescence of the deep sea, might it not be a lure as much as a lodestar? Alluvia, whose presence had always been an anchor of tranquility, pondered the healer's perspective. Or perhaps it is a warning, like the vibrant colors of poisonous flora. Nyx, the scout, who had always embraced the unknown, was swift to point out the potential for new horizons. Unknown territories are charted by those willing to brave the uncharted light. And yet, as they debated, the distant forces that had been drawn to Desol felt the shockwave of the crystal's awakening. The treehouse, once a mere memory within the vastness of the forest, had become a nexus of power, a lodestar that could no longer be ignored. The shock of the crystal's reaction left them with more questions than answers, their contemplations a clutter of theories and conjectures. Esephris, his unique marking now a glowing testament to their connection with the artifact, was the embodiment of the unknown they sought to comprehend. As the light receded, leaving an afterimage etched upon their retinas, the group knew that their path had irrevocably changed. The shadows over Desol, both literal and metaphorical, had gathered around them, and their journey had taken its first true step into the light of the unknown. Chapter 5: Mysteries Unveiled. The glyphs etched upon its surface, he began, his voice a melodic cadence that filled the space between them. They resemble the ancient script of the elders, yet are unlike anything found in the tomes of our great library. Lana, standing a measure away, her emerald green hair a marked difference to the cool light, folded her arms as she considered the implications. We must tread lightly, she cautioned, the sapphire blue of her eyes hardening with resolve. Our ancestors sealed away knowledge for reasons that often only became clear when it was too late. Matchra, his midnight black hair barely visible in the dimness, scoffed at the notion, his hazel eyes glinting with an engineer's pragmatism. Caution is the shield of the timid. To unlock the true potential of this artifact, we must push beyond the boundaries of the known. Nyx, the ever-curious Remek, cocked his head to one side, his hair and eyes shifting to match the shard's glow. What is discovery but the challenging of preconceived notions? The unknown beckons, and it is our duty to answer its call. The debate was fervent, each member of the group interjecting their perspective into the tangled web of conjecture. Esephris, ever the student of history, insisted, "There is wisdom in the past. These symbols may well be a map to untold knowledge, or a warning we would do well to heed." Lana, with a botanist's understanding of natural order, countered, "The very flora we cherish teaches us that not all that glows is gold. Some luminescence is a lure into the jaws of death." Matchra, his stance as unyielding as his brawny build, dismissed the caution. "Progress is born of risks. Our forebears did not conquer the skies by fearing the fall, but by daring to leap." Nyx, his voice a sibilant whisper that seemed to weave through the air, added, "The Remek say that light is the tongue of the cosmos, speaking truths too vast for the uninitiated. We stand on the threshold of initiation." As the debate swirled like the winds around the crags of Desol, the crystal shard continued its arcane dance of light. The distant forces, drawn to the flare of its awakening, moved ever closer, their intent as inscrutable as the symbols upon the artifact itself. Esephris and Lana, the voices of historical reverence and natural caution, stood in stark opposition to Matchra and Nyx, the advocates for the daring plunge into the depths of the unknown. The tension was as palpable as the electric air that surrounded the shard, a silent testament to the draw and danger of the darkness that lay beyond the reach of their light. Chapter 6: Unearthed Powers. "The manipulation of light and shadow is akin to the wielding of the very fabric of reality," he said, his voice steady, betraying none of the trepidation that such an act warranted. Beside him, Lana, her sapphire gaze intensely focused on the crystal, replied with a measured tone, "The natural world maintains a balance, and for every beam of light cast, a corresponding shadow must fall. We must ponder the cost of wielding such power." Matchra, his stance wide and sure, hovered near the source of their fascination, his hazel eyes reflecting a spark of anticipation. This obscurity in our grasp could very well be the key to ascendancy. Are we to shy away from the very threshold of supremacy? Nyx, ever the embodiment of adaptability, watched the interplay of light across the room with an analytical mind. Vision often requires one to adjust one's sight to the dim or the dazzling. Perhaps this shard is the lens through which we might view the hidden truths of our existence. Tension simmered within the chamber as the shard, responding to the proximity of its handlers, began to emit pulses of light, each throb casting stark silhouettes against the stone. The visions that flickered at the edge of their perception were tantalizing, fragmented scenes of places and times both alien and familiar. Esephris, his scholarly instincts alight with the thrill of discovery, posited, "If we could harness this, imagine the insights into the universe we might gain." Lana, her mind ever attuned to the cycles of growth and decay, countered, "Insight is not without its price. We could be blinded by the very light we seek to capture." Matchra, his voice a deep rumble, was dismissive of the caution. "A candle is not lit to be hidden under a bushel. We have been given a torch. Let us not fear the shadows it casts." Nyx, the youthful scout, added his perspective with a sly undertone. "Shadows are but the canvas for the light. To understand one, we must embrace the other." As the group grappled with the implications of the crystal's burgeoning powers, the distant forces that had been drawn to its awakening continued their inexorable advance. The fabric of Desol seemed to tremble with the resonance of the artifact, its reawakening a clarion call that could not be unheeded. In the chamber, the excitement of discovery mingled with the fear of its implications, the uncontrolled power sparking disputes that seemed irresolvable. The shard granted them glimpses of obscured visions, half-understood truths that beckoned and repelled in equal measure. The group stood at a crossroads, the light of the unknown, both a guide and a warning. The shadows cast by the crystal's glow were long and profound, foreshadowing the depths of the secrets yet to be unearthed. Chapter 7: Illuminate the Shadows. This reaction, it's as if the artifact recognizes something within me. Esephris mused aloud, his melodic voice reverberating off the walls. Lana, her petite form a mere silhouette against the backdrop of cascading light, edged closer, observing the phenomenon with a critical eye. "It's as though you're a key, Esephris, and the crystal, a lock to doors unknown," she said, her voice imbued with the analytical precision of her botanist's mind. Matchra, his muscular arms folded across his chest, watched the display with a mixture of awe and skepticism. If we are to entertain the notion of keys and locks, then what realms are we opening? What paths are we treading? Nix, the young scout, his eyes reflecting the myriad colors of the chamber, chimed in, his tone tinged with the excitement of discovery. Imagine the frontiers we might explore, the vistas we could behold. This is more than an artifact. It's a gateway. Alluvia, standing slightly apart, her graceful figure framed by the flickering shadows, added her thoughts with the tempered voice of a healer. Gateways lead to the unknown, to places where light may not reach. Caution would be our ally. Their exchange was cut short as the crystal pulsed sharply, sending out a wave of brilliance that seemed to pierce the veil of reality itself. The cavern walls fell away, and a series of otherworldly visions unfolded before their eyes, landscapes of impossible geometry, creatures of ethereal beauty, and skies painted with unimagined colors. Esephris, his eyes wide with wonder, was the nexus of this revelation. Behold, the vistas of the cosmos laid bare. We stand on the precipice of the infinite. Lana, her scientific curiosity, battling with the primal caution of her Atlantean heritage, sought to ground the experience. We must catalog these visions, understand their place in the natural order. Matchra, his voice a low rumble, clung to his engineer's sensibilities. Sights and wonders aside, we must ascertain the mechanics of this interaction. Knowledge is the foundation of power. Nyx, with the adaptability of his reptilian race, embraced the flux of change. What is power but the ability to adapt, to evolve? This crystal could herald a new era for us all. Alluvia, her voice a steady stream amidst the tumult of discovery, reminded them of the potential peril. Evolution, unchecked by wisdom, can lead to a fall from great heights. We must tread with care. As the light subsided and the cavern walls solidified once more, the sense of foreboding that had accompanied the visions lingered like a specter. The distant forces, drawn inexorably toward the awakening power, felt the stirrings of the crystal's call, a siren song that promised both enlightenment and oblivion. In the aftermath of the crystal's display, the group was left to ponder the staggering implications of what they had witnessed. Esephris, connected to the shard in ways they could not yet fathom, seemed to stand at the cusp of untold potential, his latent abilities resonating with the artifact's ancient might. As they grappled with the promise and the threat of the crystal's power, the shadows over Desol grew deeper, a palpable darkness that sought to envelop the light of their newfound knowledge. The revelation of other dimensions and the hint of Esephris's own powers were but the first steps into a labyrinth far more intricate than the caverns that cradled them. Chapter 8, A Dance of Light-Darkness. Esephris, his palm shimmering in silent echo to the shard's rhythm, stepped forward first. The light swirled around him, responding to an unseen force emanating from his very being. Observe, he intoned, the dance of photons and quanta, a ballet of the cosmos held in the palm of one's hand. Lana, her features etched with the precision of someone who understood the delicate balance of the natural world, watched intently. The interplay of chlorophyll and sunlight is the cornerstone of life. Yet this is something else entirely, a manipulation of the very essence of light. Matchra, his broad shoulders squared as if ready to wrestle the forces of nature itself, nodded with a grudging respect. To twist and bend light to our will, that is a power that borders on the divine or the profane. Nyx, Shade, as he was known for his uncanny ability to blend with his surroundings, took his turn with a quiet curiosity. Colors shifted across his skin in a mesmerizing display. In the shadows and light, there lies the spectrum of existence. To control one is to walk a path threaded through the fabric of reality. Alluvia, her presence as calming as the still waters of a secluded spring, reached out her hand to the shard, her touch tentative. If light is the harbinger of growth and shadow the blanket of rest, what then shall we become as masters of both? Their voices reverberated through the atrium, each word laden with the weight of discovery and responsibility. As they each wielded the shard, the light obeying their unspoken commands, personal revelations dawned upon them like stars in the firmament of night. Esephris, the scholar, found his mind expanding, thoughts cascading like a river breaking through a dam. We stand on the edge of a precipice, gazing into the abyss of knowledge. Shall we leap? Lana, the botanist, saw patterns of life and growth, the intertwining of root and branch in an intricate mosaic. Life thrives in the balance. We must not tip the scales, lest we invite a reckoning from nature itself. Matchra, the engineer, envisioned structures wrought from light, cities that defied gravity and time. The application of such power could elevate our civilization to heights undreamed of, or cast it down into ruin. Nyx, the scout, gazed into the heart of the shard and saw a labyrinth of possibilities, each path a different shade of reality. Choices are the hinges of destiny. Our path is fraught with shadows, yet lit by the promise of dawn. Alluvia, the healer, felt the pulse of the shard synchronizing with the beat of her heart. In healing, one learns that the brightest light casts the darkest shadow. We must wield this power with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Outside the atrium, the forces drawn by the artifact's reawakening closed in, their motives obscured by the growing dark. The power that flowed through the friends was a balefire to those who sought to claim it for their own unaccountable ends. In the dance of light and darkness, the friends moved with a grace born of fascination and tempered by the undercurrent of fear. The seductive pull of power, the weight of its consequences, was a dance they had only just begun to learn. As they strengthened their backbone and the bonds that held them together, their journey through the shadows over Desol had taken a turn into realms uncharted, where each step forward was a step into the vast unknown. Chapter 9. Echoes of an Ancient Voice. Within the skeletal embrace of the treehouse, Matchra, Lana, Nyx, and Alluvia congregated, each bearing the solemnity of the task at hand. The soil of Desol, rich and dark, awaited them, ripe with the promise of buried enigmas. Esephris' voice broke the stillness, his tone as steady as the pulsar beacons in the night sky. The whispers have guided us here, to the cradle of our past, where the earth itself holds the key to the cosmic lock we've stumbled upon. Lana, her gaze locked on the ancient timber underfoot, responded with the precision of her scientific training. The symbiosis between flora and the soil is well documented, yet we delve for a different harvest, one of truth long interred. Matchra, his hands already itching for the tools of excavation, added with a practicality that was his signature. Tools and sweat will reveal what time has concealed. Let us unearth these truths, layer by layer. Nyx, his figure blending with the nocturnal hues, nodded in agreement, his voice a sibilant murmur. The land whispers back if one knows how to listen. Our ears are open, our hands ready. Alluvia, who carried the essence of tranquility in her every move, spoke with a voice that seemed to flow from the earth itself. Healing comes from understanding. May we find the salve for our ignorance in the soil of this venerable sanctuary. Their exchange, a conglomerate of conviction and curiosity, gave way to action as they began to dig beneath the old treehouse. Trowels and hands worked in concert, disturbing the slumber of the earth to reveal its hidden troves. Esephris' hands brushed against an object, half swallowed by the ground, a relic encrusted with the patina of ages, yet pulsating with an energy that mirrored the shard's own. Behold, an echo of the ancient voice, resonating through the aeons. Lana leaned over the newly unearthed artifact, her analytical mind cataloging its features. The design is consistent with the shard's era, a piece of the puzzle that spans the gulf of time. Matchra, examining the unearthed relic, grunted with approval. Each finding is a declaration to our resolve. Let this not be the last of our discoveries. Nyx, ever observant, peered closer at the filigree on the artifact. Patterns and symbols, much like the shard's own. They speak a language of light and shadow, seen and unseen. Alluvia, her touch gentle on the artifact, sensed the vibrations that emanated from within. As roots entwine with the essence of the earth, so too does this relic connect with the shard. We are unearthing more than mere objects. We are awakening a legacy. Unseen by the group, the distant forces drawn to the artifact's power quickened their pace, their shadows stretching across the terrain of Desol. The reawakening of the crystal and its kin was a clarion call that resonated through the darkened corners of the world. The pursuit of truth, daunting and laden with the unknown, drove Esephris and his companions deeper into the labyrinth of their quest. The relics they unearthed beneath the treehouse were but whispers of a past that clamored to be heard, and the dance of light and darkness they had begun to master was now a tango with the very fabric of existence. Chapter 10. Legends Unlocked. Esephris, his hair catching the stray rays of light that filtered through the decrepit archways, spoke first, his voice a conduit for the ages. These holographic records are an instrument to the Atlanteans' grasp on the cosmos. The patterns here mirror those upon the shard. Lana, her attention fixed on the ethereal projections that danced before them, nodded. The constellations charted here are not random. They align with the celestial events recorded in the accounts of our forebearers. Matchra, his figure a contrast against the precision-cut stone, grunted. Atlas himself would strain under the burden of such knowledge. Yet here we stand, deciphering the codex of the ancients. Nyx, his eyes ever-changing, scanned the spectral images that played out before them. Legends speak of those who could converse with the stars themselves. This shard, could it be the relic of such communion? Alluvia, her hands tracing the lines of a faded mural, added, "The prophecies of old spoke of a time when the stars would sing and the chosen would arise. Perhaps in our hands, the melody begins anew." Their dialogue, a melding of inquiry and revelation, wove through the ruins like the very light they sought to understand. The holograms, a cascade of ancient knowledge, revealed constellations that pulsed in time with the artifact, hinting at a connection that transcended time. Esephris, his face a mask of concentration, continued, "The Atlanteans' reach extended beyond our current grasp. This shard was not merely a tool, it was part of a grand design, a legacy etched in starlight." Lana, her mind racing with botanical analogies, pondered, "Like the grand trees that once stood here, we are but a link in a chain that stretches into the darkness of history." Matchra, his voice a deep timbre, mused, "If we are to shoulder this legacy, we must harness the power that once commanded the heavens." Nyx, thoughtful, observed, "To unlock the secrets of the stars, we must first unlock the potential within ourselves. This is the path the prophecy has charted." Alluvia, a note of caution in her normally steady tone, said, "We tread upon the dreams of those who came before. Let us honor their aspirations as we forge our own destiny." As they pieced together the fragments of lore and technology, the group began to grasp the enormity of the crystal's history. It was a buoy from an era when the boundaries between science and myth were indistinguishable, and their fate was now inextricably linked to the legends of a bygone era. Unbeknownst to them, the distant forces converging upon Desol sensed the stirrings of understanding within the group. The power of the reawakened artifact called to them, a siren song that promised dominion over the shadows that veiled the world. In the ruins, the weight of history pressed upon the young shoulders of Esephris and his companions. Their journey, a dance upon the edge of illumination and obscurity, was an instrument to the enduring pursuit of knowledge. As they delved deeper into the mysteries of the crystal, the echoes of an ancient voice grew louder, guiding them toward a truth as vast as the night sky. Chapter 11, Shadows Stir. Esephris, cloaked in the half-light, his voice barely above a whisper, alerted his companions. There is a disturbance in the penumbra, a distortion that defies the natural order of these woods. Lana, her senses attuned to the subtle shifts in the environment, nodded in silent agreement. The underbrush betrays signs of passage, the disruption of patterns that speak of a deliberate approach. Matchra, his hands instinctively reaching for the tools of his trade, his every muscle coiled and ready, grunted in recognition of the threat. Preparations must be made. We are not the hunters here, but the hunted. Nyx, his skin shifting to mirror the dappled light through the leaves, scanned the tree line. Observation and adaptation are allies in this game of shadows. We must become indistinguishable from the dusk. Alluvia, her countenance serene amidst the encroaching danger, focused on the task at hand. The resonance of the shard with the earth beneath our feet may yet reveal the intentions of those who skulk in our periphery. Their exchange was a symphony of vigilance, each note a forerunner of the skirmishes to come. As dusk claimed the land, they encountered the shadowy figures that had so silently amassed around them, the sinister forces emerging like specters from the night. The first clash was sudden, a flurry of movement as figures detached from the darkness, their motives as opaque as the void from which they sprang. Esephris, his hand moving to the shard, unleashed a cascade of light that sent the assailants reeling, their intentions unveiled in the harsh glare. "Aggressors from the abyss seek to claim the heart of our discovery," he stated, his voice a calm over the chaos. Lana, her emerald locks a vivid incongruity to the night, her stance resolute, observed their attackers with a critical eye. Their maneuvering, it's orchestrated, a dance macabre with the shard at its center. Matchra, his silhouette a bulwark against the encroaching figures, met the aggression with a controlled ferocity. We stand united, a bastion against the tide that seeks to engulf us. Nyx, his form blending once more with the surroundings, struck with precision, his actions a token to the scout's creed. In silence and shadow, we find our strength. In light, our resolve. Alluvia, ever the healer, remained a presence of calm, her actions deliberate as she navigated the fray. Conflict is the crucible through which our purpose is forged. The encounters tested their unity, each skirmish a revelation of the broader dangers that the crystal posed. The artifact's awakening had not gone unnoticed, and Desol itself seemed to hold its breath as distant forces converged, drawn by the burgeoning power of the shard. As the group fought to protect their discovery, the shadows over Desol danced with the flickering light of their resolve. The lurking presence, its intentions now unveiled, was but a forerunner of the trials that lay ahead. The dance of light and darkness had begun, and the echoes of an ancient voice whispered of a destiny that was yet to be fully unlocked. Chapter 12, Hearts Entwined. Esephris, his back to the pair as he surveyed the darkening horizon, was oblivious to the silent standoff behind him. His thoughts preoccupied with the looming threats that encircled them, he remained unaware of the personal tempest brewing in his shadow. Matchra, his attention divided between the preparations for the night and the dynamics of his companions, grunted to himself, a sound that seemed to acknowledge the complexity of alliances and rivalries. Nyx, as ever alert to the subtleties of his environment, perceived the shift in the atmosphere. His voice cut through the tension with the precision of a well-honed blade. The terrain of human interaction is as fraught with peril as the battlefield. We navigate it with care, or we risk the unity of our purpose. Lana, her gaze fixed on a point beyond the wooden walls, spoke evenly, her words carefully chosen. Observations of the natural world reveal that competition can be as much a catalyst for evolution as cooperation. Yet one wonders, at what cost does this advancement come? Alluvia, her hands clasped before her, responded without turning her head. In the grand hodgepodge of life, each thread must find its place, or the entire structure risks unraveling. Their exchange, a verbal dance around the true heart of the matter, continued as the sky darkened, and the first stars began to prick the night with their cold light. Esephris, finally turning to face them, noted the strained atmosphere. In our quest, we must guard against the internal shadows that threaten to obscure our path, as fiercely as we do those that seek to encroach from without. Matchra, his voice a rumble like distant thunder, added, "The cohesion of this group is paramount. We each carry a fragment of the whole. Should one fragment fracture, the integrity of our mission is compromised." Nyx, his chameleon nature allowing him to blend into the gathering dusk, offered, "The keenest insights often arise from conflict. It forges us, shaping us into instruments of precision." Lana and Alluvia, their profiles etched against the treehouse's rough interior, found themselves at an impasse. The moment had come for the unspoken to be voiced, for the turmoil that had long simmered to be acknowledged. Lana, her voice devoid of warmth, stated, "The pursuit of knowledge, the quest for understanding, these are noble endeavors, yet they are not immune to the baser instincts that drive us." Alluvia, her tone equally measured, replied, "The desires for recognition, for validation, these too are part of the spectrum of existence. We do not rise above them, we integrate them." As they confronted the truths that lay between them, the distant forces that had been drawn to the reawakening of the crystal shard moved ever closer. The artifact's power, a warning in the gathering darkness, promised not only enlightenment but also the potential for strife. In this critical hour, the bonds that united the group were tested. The hearts of Lana and Alluvia, entwined with the fate of their companion, were laid bare, challenging them to find a certainty or risk the fracture of their unity. The shadows over Desol were not merely those cast by the dying light, but also those that lurked within the hearts of those bound by destiny. Chapter 13, Predators of the Past. Esephris, his silvery hair reflecting the celestial display above, assessed their situation with a clarity that belied the chaos that encroached. We find ourselves at the nexus of converging paths, each vying for dominion over the secrets we have unearthed. Lana, her emerald green hair a dramatic divergence to the surrounding darkness, stood firm, her sapphire eyes scanning the labyrinth of trees. To navigate the woods is to understand its rhythms. These interlopers disrupt the harmony of Desol with their relentless pursuit. Matchra, his brawny form poised for action, clenched his fists, the glow from his palm cartilage a dim balefire in the night. We are not quarry to be hunted. This cabal shall find that we are made of sterner stuff. Nyx, ever the enigma, blended into the forest shadows, his voice a sibilant thread woven through the conversation. The hunter and the hunted, an eternal dance. We must lead this chase, not be led by it. Alluvia, her graceful presence a counterpoint to the tension that gripped them, spoke with a measured cadence. Our solidarity is the crucible in which our steadiness is tested. It shall not be found wanting. The group moved as one, a collective force sweeping through the underbrush, their every step a defiance against the cabal's agents that swarmed through the woods. The chase, a frenetic dash beneath the watchful eyes of the auroras, was a history to their unity. Esephris, his mind a whirlwind of strategy and foresight, directed their flight. We must use the terrain to our advantage, turn the hunter's ground into the hunted's haven. Lana, with a botanist's knowledge of the forest, suggested, "The willow's grove ahead offers concealment and the opportunity to recalibrate our course." Matchra, his voice low and urgent, replied, "We'll make our stand there. The grove shall be our bulwark, and these pursuers will find their advance broken upon it." Nyx, his eyes reflecting the myriad colors that flickered above, said, "Shadows can be friend or foe. Tonight, they cloak our movements and confound those who seek to ensnare us." Alluvia, her tone steady, added, "As the moth uses the night to elude its predators, so shall we employ the cover of darkness to evade ours." Their words, a cascade of steadiness and ingenuity, were punctuated by the sounds of pursuit, the crack of a branch, the rustle of leaves, the whispered commands of their adversaries. As they converged upon the willow's grove, the distant forces that had been drawn to the reawakening of the crystal shard felt the surge of energy that coursed through the forest. The artifact's power, a balefire amidst the shadows, was the prize for which the cabal hungered, and the prize that Esephris and his friends were determined to protect. In the heart of Desol, under the watchful gaze of the auroras, the stage was set for an inevitable clash. The convergence of opposing wills, the relentless march of destiny, and the solidarity of a group bound by a purpose greater than themselves, all were elements in the unfolding drama that would determine the mastery of the crystal's ancient might. Chapter 14. Clash of Light and Shadow. Esephris, his voice calm despite the chaos, addressed the shadowy figure before them. "Your pursuit of power has led you to this impasse. The crystal is not merely a tool, it is a legacy that you seek to corrupt." The mastermind, cloaked in the garb of obscurity, responded with a voice that seemed to weave through the darkness itself. "You, who are so young, claim wisdom over artifacts that predate your very existence. The crystal's power is wasted on the likes of you." Lana, standing firmly at Esephris' side, her botanical knowledge now a secondary concern to the historical revelations unfolding, spoke up. "The natural world thrives on balance, and you, interloper, would tip the scales to the point of collapse." Matchra, his formidable presence a token to his readiness for the unfolding confrontation, interjected, "We have unearthed the truths that you would bury. Your time, like the shadows from which you emerge, is fleeting." Nyx, the colors of his skin shifting in tandem with the auroras above, added with cunning, "The artifice of your maneuvers is clear to us now. You are no more than a predator, skulking in the underbrush." Alluvia, whose healing talents were now overshadowed by the stark need for determination, spoke with a clarity that cut through the din. "The crystal's song is not one of dominion, but of harmony. You hear only the discord of your desires." As the confrontation escalated, Esephris reached out to the crystal, his palm resonating with its energy. The air itself seemed to tremble as he unlocked a new level of the artifact's power, the very essence of reality bending to his will. The mastermind, now visibly unnerved by the display, hesitated. What sorcery is this? The crystal's secrets are mine by right. Esephris, his determination now manifest in the swirling light that surrounded them, countered. Rights are earned, not seized. You sought to control the shadows, but I stand in the light. The ground beneath their feet shuddered as the crystal's power reached its zenith, and with a gesture from Esephris, the Cabal's forces were scattered like leaves in a gale. The mastermind recoiled, his plans undone by the unity of the group before him. Lana, her eyes reflecting the light of the crystal, said, "The seeds you have sown here shall find no purchase. Desol remains untainted by your ambition." Matchra, his stance now relaxed as the threat receded, remarked, "The structures you sought to impose crumble before the might of true purpose." Nyx, blending back into the landscape, murmured, "The shadows retreat, and with them, your influence fades." Alluvia, her figure a bastion amidst the dissipating chaos, concluded, "In healing, we find the strength to overcome. Your presence here is a wound that shall be closed." As the distant forces that had been drawn to the crystal's reawakening witnessed the turn of events, a new understanding dawned upon them. The power they had coveted was not to be controlled but respected, a truth that Esephris and his friends had realized through their trials. In the aftermath of the clash, the group stood together, the truths unearthed about the crystal and themselves, irrevocably altering their course. The shadows over Desol had been cast aside, and in their place, the light of a new dawn promised a future shaped by the choices made in the heart of the struggle. Chapter 15, Horizons Beckoning. Esephris, the luminescence of his palm cartilage, a subtle glow beneath the station's ambient light, spoke with a gravity that belied his years. "We stand at the cusp of a journey not just of distance, but of understanding. The artifact we've safeguarded is but a prelude to the symphony of enigmas the Academy holds." Lana, her emerald tresses almost blending with the verdant hues of the Academy's gardens, visible in the distance, nodded. "The flora of Desol has been our companion, our teacher. May the Academy's halls broaden our horizons further." Matchra, his sturdy frame a pillar amidst the transient crowds, added, "Structures of knowledge more intricate than the finest machinery await our study. The Academy's archives are rich with the promise of discovery." Nyx, his features a chameleon's canvas painted with the subdued shades of the station, observed, "We venture forth not just in space, but in thought. The Academy offers a labyrinth of intellect, ripe for exploration." Alluvia, her graceful silhouette a contrast against the industrial backdrop of the train, offered, "The healer's craft is an endless quest for wisdom. The Academy's libraries hold the keys to mysteries of body and essence. Their pact, forged in the heart of Desol's shadowed woods, was a solemn promise to stand united in the protection of the crystal and each other." As they stepped onto the hover train, each felt the duality of their departure, a chapter closing even as the pages of the next turned with the whisper of promise. Esephris' gaze lingered on the retreating landscape of Desol. "This land has borne witness to our growth. Let it not be said that we depart lightly or without a backward glance." Lana, her eyes tracing the receding lines of the Academy's spires, spoke, "The botanical wonders of Desol will remain with me, a green thread woven through the clutter of my thoughts." Matchra, his hand resting on the cool metal of the train's interior, stated, "The edifices of our past accomplishments will serve as the foundation for those to come." Nyx, his voice barely audible over the thrum of the train, murmured, "Change is the only constant. We adapt, we learn, we thrive." Alluvia, her demeanor composed as the landscape outside began to blur with speed, said, "Our journey is both literal and figurative. The distance we traverse is measured not only in leagues, but in lessons learned." As the hover train accelerated, whisking them toward the vault of knowledge that was the Academy, the distant forces that had sought the crystal's power receded into the fabric of Desol. The artifact's reawakening, a precursor of change, now lay in the hands of those destined to unlock its deeper truths. The chapter titled Horizons Beckoning was not an end but a commencement, a call to engage in scientific inquiry that echoed in the minds of Esephris and his friends. The future beckoned with the allure of the unknown, and they, as both guardians and scholars, answered its call. The end. Atli Illumination was generated by patent-pending AI technology developed by StoryWave. Any resemblance to real events, persons, or copyrighted material is purely coincidental. StoryWave does not endorse or promote any specific views, opinions, or actions portrayed in this story. Thank you for being part of this journey. Trust in StoryWave AI to transform your creative prompts into compelling stories. Show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Daily stories await to whisk you away. April 2024. Goodbye for now.